So, there's more indirect evidences. These are ones that we can't necessarily see in our lifetime, but these are evidences that we have a common ancestry, meaning that we all originated from a common organism. For example, we have homologous structures, embryonic development patterns, biochemical evidence, and vestigial organs. These at least demonstrate a common pattern of development. Now, grab the pen, let's move on. So the first one that we're going to look at are homologous structures. Can you guess what organisms these are? Well, first off, what we're looking at here, this one probably looks fairly familiar because you have one attached to each of your shoulders. This is a human hand. So you can see the bones here. The bones are going to be the similar bones that you can find here. Here we have a humerus, here we have radius and ulna, and then we have all of these down, all of the finger bones down here, and the parts of the wrist. Notice all of the little tiny bones in that wrist, that gives it flexibility. If we look at this next one, you may have guessed this one. This is a cat. Here we have the same thing. We have the humerus, the radius and ulna, all of these little bones inside that wrist, and then all the way down to the claws. This one's probably not as evident, but you can still see the same specific bones. Some of them are a little more prevalent than others. Well, this is a whale's fin. Once again, this is a mammal, and we have very similar structure to it, even though there are some specific distances. And this one here is actually a bat's wing. We still see the humerus, see the radius and ulna, and then those fingers. So just the shape of these things differ between all of these organisms, but we still have the same organisms. Homologous. Homo meaning same. These are all homologous structures found in these specific organisms. So the next one that we'll talk about is embryonic development. Looking at these. These are 4 different species of organisms. These ones, they all look very similar. For example, here's a human. Yes, you notice right there, you had a tail at one point in time. That tail is the development of the spine. You can see the brain, the eyeball, nasal area. All of these things are found in all of these specific animals. The next one, maybe a closer relative than you'd think. This is a swine. Now, both of these are of course, mammals. You think, well, mammals, we ought to be fairly similar, but sometimes that's a reptile. So that could be some sort, I don't know which specific lizard that's going to be, but you can see you're going to have a lot of similar structures found between them. And then last is a bird. Well, both of these are going to be grown in eggs. So they're not mammals. They're not any different than, yet embryologically, they are homologous. Homologous embryonic development. We all started out fairly similar. Things started changing once we start to develop into our more mature selves. And yes, you did have a tail. Here's some more examples of embryos. These are actual photos. See if you can guess which is which. Give you a couple seconds there. Well, that's a reptile. You can see the head all the way down to the tail. That's a bird. The bird's going to be, see how that would fit inside an egg. A rabbit. And then lastly, that's a human. Looks kind of gross right there, but it's kind of like a praying mantis or something. But they are going to be similar. The last evidence we are going to go over are biochemical similarities. Biochemical, the most ones that we're looking at are DNA and proteins. All living organisms contain DNA. The DNA is all going to be based off of those 4 nucleotides, which we saw earlier, A, T, C, and G. If you can't read those, I'm sorry. That's why you can go back and listen to them later. Everything is based off of those, the same 4 nucleotides. All life on Earth comes from DNA, which is evidence of a common ancestor. Got that? So there's our evidences of evolution.